Hi, I'm Peter Reinhardt, and welcome to Pizza Quest. Here on Pizza Quest, it's as much about the quest as it is about the pizza, as you know. And today's show is about a very unique quest to make a huge difference in the lives of young people at risk, through a program called the How You Doin Foundation, headed by Executive Director Eddie Fischer. Now, this isn't the Eddie Fischer of my youth, the guy married to Elizabeth Taylor and Debbie Reynolds, and the father of Carrie Fisher, who was, for a while, back when I was a young boy, as popular as Frank Sinatra. No, this is the other Eddie Fisher. So, Eddie, welcome to Pizza Quest, and tell us a little bit about yourself and about how you're doing.
Peter, I'm so grateful to be with you this morning. Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure.
Yes, this is the other Eddie Fisher, with a C in the last name, but I am a junior, so I heard it. Do you sing, Eddie? And on my paper route, remember those paper routes?
Yeah.
I had to learn "Oh My Papa" for more tips. So I am
The- so being the other Eddie Fisher is nothing new to you.
nothing new. I'm still in that generation, right, where I caught the tail end of that. Now nobody knows who he is now, but I am familiar with Eddie Fisher, that's for sure.
And you're based now in Texas, in near the Dallas area, Dallas Fort Worth area, but you sound like you're from the East Coast to me.
I am. I'm a Jersey boy through and through. I grew up in Sayreville, New Jersey. I call that Bon Jovi town. So we went to the same high school and spent my first 30 years of my life in Jersey, and that's where my personality was shaped, the stories were formed, and my love of pizza really happened, Peter. I grew up, my Uncle Rocky actually had a pizza place in Perth Amboy, New Jersey, and my grandmother, who's still alive at the age of 99, worked there, and I'd spend time, going into the shop and was always fascinated with the big deep dive into the fresh mozzarella and freshly shredded. My Uncle Rocky was a character in himself. And my mom had my birthday parties there growing up. It was just such a neat place as a young kid to go over the bridge into Perth Amboy and go into this pizza place. It was fascinating. And it really, it really, pizza, right, to me was always that bringing someone together, bringing people together.
Hey, that kind of feeds into what you're doing now, because you're a true Jersey boy, but now you've lived a number of other places. We want to kind of get a little bit of your journey from you, and tell us how you went from Jersey to out to Texas and started this foundation for young people, for teenagers who are having all sorts of challenges, drugs and just sort of directionless and you're on a mission to kind of save the youth. How did that happen for you?
Well, Peter, thank you for asking. That's a really great question. You know, along with my love of pizza, alcohol was always a part of my life. It was part of the culture I grew up in. I was surrounded by it constantly. Well, I really didn't like what it did to the men in my life or some of the women in my life.
Yeah.
And I went to a place where I actually joined them. Instead of kind of rebelling against it, I fell into that and I took my first drink at around 13 years old.
Wow.
And it 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 made me feel alive. And it was also searching. I was kind of a mama's boy growing up. Spent a lot of time with my grandmothers and my aunts, and I was the firstborn. I'm the oldest. And but I was an only child for 7 years. My mom and dad had, the three of us kind of all spread out, so it's an interesting dynamic,
Interesting, yeah.
and, you know, I was really searching for male acceptance. my grandfathers and my father. I wanted to be in the boys' club, but I was kind of more of that mama's boy. So I felt like drinking could be a way to connect with the men in my life. And then I thought, well, if I kind of act like them and maybe if I can outdrink them, and I ended up doing all of that.
But like so many other young people who,
Yes. And
going,
really the search, Peter, it was the search for connection and belonging. And it really cost me a lot in my life because I started putting that ahead of studying. I was a very good baseball player, but I found myself, in high school especially, when we were going to drink, we started simply waiting for someone to buy us alcohol outside a packaged goods store.
just like in the movies.
Exactly. It really, if we use that much energy for other things as we did, to get alcohol, I could only imagine what we could have done. But, you know, this is the journey, and it really kind of took over my life in my 20s. And as I started advancing, drinking more, I actually got an opportunity to move to Scottsdale, Arizona. And that was in 2000.
That's for work or for
Yeah,
family?
I was in banking. I ended up being a banker out of all the things. And went out there, I really needed a change of an environment. And it was very good for me. It was a wonderful thing because that's where I met my wife. Uh, and that's where I got sober. But it really took me a lot more pain in Arizona. That's where I developed a drug habit on top of drinking. And at the age of 35, it started to really all crash down on me.
So the drinking was kind of a gateway to even a deeper level of addictions for you. When did you hit bottom and how did you pull yourself out?
Well, at the age of 35, I was very, very successful financially, but I was broken inside. And I found myself checking into the Betty Ford Center in Rancho Mirage, California,
Wow.
and going to treatment was a real weird experience. It's something that I needed, something that was it was just, I kind of felt like a little bit of a experiment. It was definitely an odd time. I spent 30 days at the Betty Ford Center, and really, Peter, like what I found in addiction, it was a very interesting, like the brain, like the difference between compliance and surrender. And when I went to treatment, I was being more compliant because I really went to save my job.
Uh-huh.
What ended up happening was I got fired from my job anyway. And I was really trying to convince myself in treatment, like, okay, I need this. I don't need this. Maybe just drink, don't do drugs. It was a really, real wild time. And when I got out, a lot of turmoil hit. And because I really was just being compliant, I really wasn't surrendered to the fact that mind altering substances were no longer working for my life.
Right.
I relapsed about 30 days after.
Mhm. Is that a pretty common story, Eddie? That it seems to me you hear that a lot. That the relapse aspect is common. That sometimes it takes two or three go rounds before you finally make the real turn.
It is very common. It doesn't have to happen, but it's really, with the individual and where they're at, which is very, very difficult to pinpoint from the outside, people looking in. I mean, it's an internal job. And I went on an 8.5 month run that nearly killed me after that. And Peter, I had a moment of clarity on April 12th, 2006, and I ran with it. God gave me a moment of clarity, looking in the mirror. I was up for 4 days straight, and I was looking at a shell, and I heard a voice say, "This must all end."
Wow. Well, so it was an internal awakening as opposed to sort of a forced awakening through ending up in jail or something like that.
Yeah, it was really this culmination of everything in my life that I didn't like. It was like that full circle moment. I felt everything was like tunnel vision, and it's like God opened the bathroom door. I walked out, and I went right to my bar, and I poured every bottle of booze down the drain,
Wow.
and the next day was my first day sober, April 13th, 2006, and I started going to 12-step meetings and getting a community of men, uh, that shared that one common thing is to stay sober.
That I was gonna ask you that, like, once you have that moment, that aha moment, and you go, "This has got to end," then that's when the work really begins, right? So and it sounds like that was what was missing the first time around.
Yes. Now, in treatment, I learned what I was going to need to do. So treatment gave me an education, and they told me what would happen if I didn't take these steps. And I'll tell you what, they were right. They were,
Template is well established.
but it was such a great understanding. Like the things that, like when you're in it in the beginning and you don't know what any of this is, they talk about, it gets worse, progressive illness, uh, all this stuff. And you're kind of like, whatever. But as the tape plays out, and I was very fortunate to be given this opportunity, and I'll never take it for granted to have this opportunity now. I still had a heartbeat to get the help that I needed and to do it on a daily basis, one day at a time.
Well, this is and I think, as you said, you started going to 12-step programs, which have been so helpful to so many people, almost miraculously, given to this generation of, these last few generations of people struggling with this challenge. Um, so it sounds like it was sort of a combination of you were prepped for it by going to Betty Ford and learned the rubrics of sobriety, but then it was in, finding the community of like-minded people to keep you on the straight and narrow that really sealed the deal.
Really was. And, Peter, I'm so grateful for that. Just saying yes, right? Just saying yes opens these doors, getting out of my own way and just saying yes and showing up, just show up. And I got invited, it always comes back to food and a table, it seems like for me. There was a classic, I don't know if you remember, you probably do. There was a classic steak joint in Scottsdale called Don and Charlie's.
Well, I never got to eat there, but, I've heard of it.
And there was a group of men. They invited me to a dinner on a Monday night before a meeting, and they had a reservation at that table for 18 years running.
Wow.
And here I walk in because I said yes, because I needed to. I was desperate. Um, I sit down at this table, and all these guys, 18 years sober, 36 years sober, 32 years sober. One guy was on Normandy Beach.
Wow.
One guy had a laugh, Peter, that was so contagious. And I'm sitting around this table with a bunch of guys, and we're all laughing. They're having so much fun. And it was like, wow, I'm with a bunch of guys around a table having a blast, and no one's drinking.
Yeah.
It was a foreign thing for me to be around a bunch of guys that weren't partaking and doing that. And I thought, wow, maybe I could do this.
It's kinda like you found your club, and a club that was actually good for you.
Yes, I would have, Peter, it's kind of interesting. When you remove things from your life, there's a hole. You, I had to fill them up with what was good. And quite honestly, I was with a bunch of guys that I would have drank with, that I would have palled around with in a bar. But they made a change, and I wanted that. I wanted what they had, and that was to laugh and to love and to have a great time in community without drinking.
And the cool thing is the realization that it exists, that that possibility actually exists.
It does. And the one thing with the groups that I cherish is they don't want anything in return. They're not all they what you get from them is this gift that then you want to give away to others. And
And that's kind of like where you're at. That's coming fast forwarding full circle. You've now created a clubhouse of your own for the next generation.
Peter, I'm really on a quest because I got the opportunity to move to Texas to work with teenagers. And I really got a bird's eye view for 3 years in Texas, throughout the United States, on how in trouble our teens are in today, and it's getting worse by the year. Um,
Yeah.
there's just certain things that now are implemented that are available for kids. Now, listen, kids are doing still a lot of drinking. There's still a lot of drinking going on. Now you've got a lot of marijuana, a lot of weed. It's legal, but it's so strong, it's so potent.
Yeah, that's the scary thing about grass is that it's not the grass that I remember from
Oh,
from my youth. It's a whole different level of, I don't know how you call it, intoxication.
well, Peter, you were probably exposed to about 3 to 4% THC levels.
Uh-huh.
We're seeing upwards of 70% or higher now.
I can't even imagine what that must be like.
Well, the emergency rooms are finding out what it is because kids are going into medical marijuana-induced psychosis.
So yeah.
That, like, when we were coming through, like, I always remember, like, there was one drug I never did, and that was acid. Because there was a kid on my grandmother's block that, when I found out later, went into a trip and never came out of it, and it scared me.
Yeah.
So this is happening from weed now, where clinical psychosis, there's symptoms of excess vomiting, and people can't pinpoint it, but it's coming from the weed. And now with fentanyl, like, it's like Russian roulette.
Yeah, because adds a whole other level of, you know, of what's the word, risk, to
It's
this.
and walking through the generations now, because when I was in Arizona and then I had some sobriety, and uh, I actually went back to church when I had about 6 years sober, um, and I felt like a need to walk a spiritual life again, and my wife and we got baptized together and got to know the church got to know my story. I ended up doing 5 years of crisis work right in the middle of what the opioid epidemic hit.
Yeah.
And that was intense. 5 years of intensity of going on the streets and looking for kids with their parents and pulling people out of hotel rooms, taking them to detox. And it was really, really an incredible time to now, from the guy in the bathroom looking at himself in the mirror to now being of maximum service to others in crisis. And that's,
Yeah.
where I'm realizing of it, getting everybody in a right room, but really seeing the dynamics of family, and seeing how my family systems kind of played out. It was, just a fascinating, intense time that I'll never forget.
No.
And but
And
then
I can't imagine that, there were moments when you must have thought, "There, but for the grace of God, go I."
go I, oh,
Yeah.
Peter, you I still say that today because being in service work all the time, you just see it and you think, oh, I'd be long gone by now.
So So, having seen that, having had your own awakening and have been, working on your own self-discovery and growth and process, what what's the clubhouse that you've created and what's how you doing? By the way, for people who are listening and you want to follow along on the screen, just go to the howyoudouin.org website and it's how with and then the letter U and then DOIN.org. Very Jersey, how you doing?
It's just like
Dot org.
that, just like the hat, just like the shirt, the org.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah, bring it up and you can see some images. But we're I'm looking at the clubhouse right now on my screen. It looks like it's a place, a big building of some sort. What's that? What is the clubhouse, and how does it work? What are the principles at play that are going to actually make a difference in the? Well, you're targeting 13 to 17-year-olds, would you say?
Yes, thank you. Eh, how you doing, obviously, has been a saying in my life forever.
Right. Yeah, I'm from Philly. We said the same thing. How you doing?
How you doing? But really, for me, today, and it's interesting, a couple years ago, I was a chief marketing officer for a treatment center, and boom, I got laid off. I got laid off, place closed. Okay. I'm 50, I was like 53 at the time, just turning 54, and I'm like, "Oh, boy, like, what am I gonna do?" Well, I collected unemployment for the first time in my life, Peter. I was like, I needed to take a breath and to take a step back. I started walking. I lost 30 pounds. I started praying. I started reading. And I thought, okay, working with teenagers is where I want to go. I've seen this system kind of play out where, one, when a family needs help in the community for a teenager, they really don't know what to do. There needs to be an anchor in the community. Okay. So I thought, all right, what am I going to, I want to do a nonprofit and I want to work with teenagers because it was such a period in my life where things went, you know, and I do this thing called Uncle Eddie Eats, which I have a blast with. And,
Can you say it again? Uncle Eddie what?
Uncle Eddie Eats.
Eats.
And I,
Uncle Eddie eats. Okay, got it.
and I, and I go all over the place. But it's about connecting with people, meeting people, eating at fantastic places, but really saying that's delicious. Having these that's delicious life moments with people like you and I did, which we'll revisit on how we met. But so teens really need a safe place to go. And the How You Doing Foundation, as I started, thinking, what am I going to name it? And I'm like, how you doing? How you doing? There's not a stigma to it. There's not this like clinical thing to it. Um, and when you're outside of New Jersey or New York and you're in Texas or Arizona, people get a kick out of it. How you doing? Oh, where you from? No, you're a character. And my life's been about characters and I love it. So I name it the How You Doing Foundation. Uh, and then it's like, okay, what are we going to do? Now, what I want to tell you too is the clubhouse is not open yet.
Okay.
Okay.
So what I'm looking at is an image of the future.
Yes, we got a wonderful opportunity in our hometown here of North Lake. They're building a brand new facility and it's going to be open in 2025. And I'm waiting because the square footage price and it's so affordable for a nonprofit, right?
You got in early, yeah. But as you're describing it, it reminds me in back when I was a kid, we were talking about 50, 60 years ago. There were the boys clubs and the girls clubs.
Yes.
They were called clubs, the boys club and the girls club, that had very similar purpose and mission, a gathering place for young people to keep
Yes.
them out of trouble. Really, that was really I think its mission. You've now in midlife, you found a mission in life for yourself, which is in a sense to reinvent that and recreate it where you are, where you're planted. Would that be an accurate? way of describing what's been happening for
Very,
you?
very accurate, Peter. The one thing, though, what I like is I want a place for the kids that are in trouble. I want a solution, an immediate solution for teenagers and families to plug into immediately. Now, what I mean with that is there's so much going on in the bathrooms in high schools today with smoking weed and vaping and everything. And the kids are struggling with connection because of social media and the phones, right? And they're not having as much fun as we did. I feel it's a responsibility from my generation to share some of these wonderful things with kids, to bring them into their life, to bring it into their life, to show how much fun, life really is. I mean, teen suicide is in the top 3 causes of death for teenagers today. I mean, when I went to high school, when I was in grammar school, that did not happen.
Right. It was very rare.
Now it's one of the leading causes of death amongst teens. That w that we can't have that.
Well, let me ask you this, Eddie, a two-part question here. As you're gearing towards the opening, uh, are you already gathering sort of a cohort of young people who are hungry for this and want to be part of helping you launch it? And then part two is when you do launch it, what are you going to do to provide that fun and to give that that alternative to then going to the bathroom and getting stoned?
Well, I've been interviewing high school students. I have 2 brand ambassadors. One's 19, that's 4 years sober. And I have a high school senior who, um, isn't addicted, but sees that all her friends addicted.
Is this the young girl who wrote the letter that's on video on the website?
Yes.
So I'm
So
referring for those who are listening. There's a if on the website you'll find a video where the young lady reads the letter that she wrote and describes her need, her yearning for a place like this.
the one thing about interviewing all of, high school students is here's what I got. Um, we need a clubhouse. Eddie, would you stay open till midnight on Fridays and Saturday nights as an alternative so we have a place to go instead of going to parties where there's a lot of drinking and drugs? I was like, absolutely. And then the girls kind of got together and said, would you be able in the space to provide a quiet room where there was no electronics and just a place where we could kind of, absolutely. The boys requested a rage room where they could go in there, punch something or break something.
That's it.
So, you start learning and talking, and it's wonderful. So, yes, we're building that cohort of energy, and the communities all want it. And North Lake, Texas is where the first one's going to be. It's actually going to be right across the street from where I live. That's really phenomenal. And, Peter, it's exciting because this area is growing so much now. They're actually building a brand new middle school and a brand new high school right in the development. But we have where we're going to be about 7 to 8 communities where we'll be able to serve. So bringing all of this together, very important. Now, what are we going to do inside of it, right? Because really what I want this clubhouse to do is to revolutionize how we better serve adolescents and their families in our communities, then beyond. Because I want to put these all over the country. Okay, inside the clubhouse, you ask, how are we going to have fun? That's our first pillar, Peter. Fun is our first pillar.
Yeah, you got 4 pillars that it says in so the first pillar is fun, and that makes sense because
Yes.
it's not gonna be fun, then it doesn't really provide an alternative. There has to be a reason, a compelling reason for these young people to choose to be there.
Well, what I've seen in the clinical models, right, is parents, there's no other place. They'll send a kid to a clinical model and it's groups talking, right? The kids are not having fun in it, but they're doing it. They're checking a box. But so
Kind of like the compliance you were talking about earlier. It's not a sheer buy-in.
fun, if you are having fun, it leads to me to the second pillar. Whether you're introverted or extroverted, if you're having fun, you're going to connect with something or someone.
Connection, yeah.
Connection. And connection
really the
is
key,
the
yeah.
opposite of addiction.
Mhm.
And so really for me, that's this way these pillars work. And then you go into, which I think is the most exciting piece, is discovery.
Mm.
Because now that you're having fun and you're connecting, what I want to know from the kids is, let's discover what your passion is. Let's discover what maybe you're interested in. Do you want to go to college? Do you want to go to trade school? Do you want to go into the military? Do you want to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to be a YouTube sensation? Let's take that, foster it, and go and explore. And so one thing that I am so excited about the clubhouse, Peter, is it's kind of a mashup of all the things that I love that have meant so much to me.
Yeah.
Pizza oven's gonna be at the centerpiece.
Oh, yeah, I see in the list of activities, the very first one is pizza making, which of course is,
Yeah.
which is how we met, you and I, at a pizza conference.
Yes. And I do want to say thank you to our friend John Hoffman from Mara Forney Ovens, because John has been such an advocate, an enthusiast for this, a supporter of it. And he was the one that said, you have to meet Peter. You have to meet Peter. And that led to a beautiful discussion at that Pizza Con that we had.
Con in Philadelphia, of all places, back on home turf.
And I got home turf. It was wonderful. And, I knew from the moment we started talking that there was a synergy there. And I just too wanted to share. I don't know if you could see it. There you go. I did order it. I found it.
I'm sorry, what did you find?
Read Upon the Waters.
Oh, my book. Oh my gosh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. We talked about my book. Yeah.
Yes. This is going to be my holiday reading, my Christmas reading. And so I'm so excited about that. And
Well, I hope you enjoy it because, it is, it's where what we have in common is that we've both been on a journey of self-discovery.
yes.
And that journey is going to be unique. As you're talking about the pillars, and we got this list of activities in pillar one, the fun aspect. And I just want to quickly read some of these, and then we move to pillar two and then pillar three. But it's all about this, self-discovery is this third phase of the third pillar. But in your list of things to do, activities, pizza making, bread baking, which again, passionate thing for me, a
Yes.
podcast studio. Here we are. We're in it right now. Healthy content creation, 6 day a week access, open evenings until 10 or even later, developing an entrepreneurial spirit, master classes, incredible guest speakers, experiential trips, and even a parent date night. So you got like lots of plans in there, lots of things that can happen in there. And then the second pillar, what was the second pillar?
Second pillar is connection.
Connection, which is again, and I've written about that in Bread Upon the Waters. The key to it all is connection. In fact, I think you and I talked about this one thing at the conference, that a turning point for me in my life was when I was kind of opposed to the whole notion of religion, in my own journey for spiritual discovery. I was kind of walled off from religion until I discovered that the word religion itself derives from the root religio, which means to be connected to. And that's when the light bulb went off for me. It's all about connectedness. And I think that your second pillar is just right on in terms of connection. Because again, that's the club. That's what they want to be part of, is the club. And
Peter,
then the third one is discovery.
the thing too with the connection piece is I am going to be spending an enormous amount of time in that clubhouse. And the one differentiator to me is that I'm going to be there on a Friday night making pizzas. Because teenagers they know authenticity.
Yeah.
You got to show up for them. You got to show up. It's, and I know that there is a need for somebody like Uncle Eddie. There, everybody needs a good uncle in their life. And there needs to be somebody out there that's willing to do this at 10 o'clock at night, at 11 o'clock at night. And I'm willing to do that, in this kind of third, fourth quarter of my career. That's how I would like to end.
Yeah.
Making pies for kids,
Well,
that
this is really your legacy period. This is where you're
it
building
is.
your legacy as we talked about in one of our other episodes, being an elder to pass on the wisdom that you've acquired through your hard knocks, to the next generation.
And, when the parents, the interesting thing with the clubhouse too, Peter, is that there's a couple of different phases in a kid's life. When the parents find out, my son's smoking weed, what do we do? Well, a lot of kids now are getting shipped right out to rehab. Maybe this clubhouse, because I'm going to have some great people around me as well. Perhaps maybe the kid doesn't have to go to treatment. But if he does, we're going to be there to offer that next level of care, because I've been involved in this for so long. I know the good places. I know the places to send kids that we'll be able to work with as community partners, right? And then the most important thing, Peter, is when you send a teenager to rehab, there's very, very few places that he can come back to when he comes home. And a lot of times what happens is when a kid comes home, if the family doesn't do all the work they're supposed to, if the kid's not quite ready, it all unravels. And in about 2 days, you spent all this money on treatment, you come home, and things are right back to normal. So having a beginning, a middle, and an end as an anchor in the community, to me, is very, very important.
Yeah.
Because I know how it all kind of plays out from the moment you find out to where it gets super serious to, the road to recovery. So
Well, that's your fourth pillar then it's discovery, right? Your fourth pillar is discovery.
well, the fourth pillar
I'm sorry, it's direction. Direction. Yeah, discovery is the third pillar. It comes at the meat or give it direction.
once you've discovered, where you want to go. And I want kids to fail forward in this. Like, oh, I want to be an Instagram sensation. Okay, do you understand how hard that is? Because they think you get one like, you're going to make millions of dollars. So my job is to bring in influencers that share, like, hey, I put 6 months of content together before I even release everything, and it's a job in itself.
Yes.
So I want kids to see how difficult it is and then go, well, maybe I don't want to do that. Okay, what else do you want to do? It kind of stems from my baseball career. When I no longer could play baseball, Peter. Now, when I was in high school, if I would have rather died than got kicked off the baseball team from drinking. Texas is pretty tough. They don't have a very high tolerance for kids that are using if they get caught. So I'd like to do something about that. But, one thing with teenagers is, like, when my baseball career ended, I thought it was everything. I had nothing.
Right. Well, you're
I want to be there to help a kid say, hey, have you ever thought about journalism? Have you ever thought about broadcasting? Have you ever thought about going to work for ESPN or the MLB network or, whatever that thing is? Or maybe it's a trainer or, a coach, So I want to be able to constantly bring solutions, to teens to get them to start thinking about things. And really the direction piece, Peter, is going to be where our outcomes are. What college does a kid go to? And does he have actually that, like, specific direction? Maybe it's to go to Johnson and Wales to become the best bread baker, in the
a couple of those come. Yeah.
right? So there's just a lot of
What's so great about this, and what gives me hope that this is gonna work is that it's a well-designed concept because in addition to having an idea, you've had experience. You've worked in this field now, after when you made your shift out of banking and into the next phase, into recovery, you were helping others already. And so you've seen programs that work, you've been there, you've done that, and now you're bringing it full tilt into your full circle, into your new manifestation, this legacy project of yours. So I want to, just wish you the best of success. I know that one of the first challenges is going to be get the peer group going, get those first, early adopters of the program and build the clubhouse. And when you have that clubhouse and something's happening there, then it's inevitable others will come and join you, and you'll figure out all the things that work and don't work as it grows and evolves. So when's your target date? When are you targeting an opening for this?
frigate date. I'm waiting in January of 25 to get the numbers and to get the when the buildings are going to be ready. We're anticipating about 5,000 square foot with a mezzanine. So should be ready in the third quarter of 2025. That's what I'm being told by the builder. They're grading the property now.
Well, how are you funding it all, Eddie?
So the exciting thing for families too, Peter, is we're not going to be an insurance based or this is going to be all donor sponsored. And when families come, we're going to ask them if they would donate $25 a month or more, reoccurring to help our mission. So what I'm doing is I'm showing up. I am talking to anybody and everybody about this. This will be my third year going to the big International Pizza Festival in Las Vegas, and people have really gotten to know me, where it went from an idea to now we're official 501c3 to we have raised close to $60,000 already, and we have 20,000 more pledged by the end of the year. And Peter, I'm so excited because we're hitting these numbers without a clubhouse, right? This is the challenge, right? It's the beginning. It's the startup, period. So I'm going on meetings. I'm going on podcasts. I'm talking to everybody about it. I'm talking to corporate, sponsorships, flower sponsors, dough sponsors, so everybody.
All the groundwork that you have to do to make this happen. And as a baseball player, you'll certainly get this illusion is if you build it, they will come.
Yes. And I have 100% confidence, Peter, that North Lake is only the beginning. My goal is to run this for 3 years and then open up the next one. Perfect it.
Yeah.
Learn and then go where the need is going to be. I have this vision that mayors are going to call and say, we need this in our town. We desperately need this in our town.
Well, as we're talking, all of a sudden I had this image of a film that I love and I love to watch, especially during holiday season. It's the old Spencer Tracy, Mickey Rooney movie called Boys Town. Remember that film?
No.
And that's certainly that was an example of a guy with a vision, Father Flanagan, who started Boys Town. And if you haven't seen that movie, you got to see it. It's like from the 1930s or 40s, and that's how the Boys Town community in where's in Nebraska, started from an idea like this, an idea that like the one you've had, and then doing the steps that are necessary, to bring it into manifestation. So again, I want to remind our viewers and our listeners to go to the howudoin.org website. And again, one word, how you with the capital U, how you doing, no G, howudoin.org. And read up about it. There's ways to stay in touch with Eddie, communicate with Eddie. And I think, as you've seen already at the Pizza Expos, the pizza community is so generous. There's women in pizza, there's Slice Out Hunger, and then there's the World Pizza Champions. All of them are doing philanthropic work. All of these started out as small little cohorts of interested pizza makers who realized that in order to give meaning to their lives, they have to give back. And so, so you'll be linked up to a very nice, again, another network and connected in a way, in a whole other way, that you'll be able to bring all of that into the clubhouse once you get it going, because there's an awful lot of talented pizza makers just in the Dallas area that would probably come over and do classes for you.
Peter, I can only imagine, you know what really inspired me too was the Netflix Pizza Chef, uh, series.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It started with Chris Bianco, who I got to know his brother, as I lived out in Arizona for
Yeah,
so
you were
long.
close by there, you being in Scottsdale, you were near Pizzeria Bianco.
Yes. So,
And
getting to
Marco,
know,
everybody knows Chris, but not everybody knows his brother Marco, but you knew Marco.
yes, Marco's such a good man and a great baker. Um, so, what I want to do is bring folks in, uh, authors, pizza makers, bread makers from all over the country, and pour into these kids and the families. The date nights, Peter, for when you send your child to treatment, it becomes very isolating. A lot of parents get kicked out of the friend group. It's a very, very lonely time for parents.
Mm,
And I feel this need and I've talked to a lot of the parents that I have helped over the years, and they go, wow, I could only imagine if my wife and I could have showed up to a place and made a loaf of bread or had a pizza and not have to explain everything we're going through. It's understood. It's a welcoming place with no judgment. Like, I know why you're here. You don't have to revisit every waking moment. Come and have fun.
yeah.
Come and date your wife, date your husband. Team building and community. There's nothing like it, Peter. There's nothing like it. That's really that's so streamlined into what we're doing, and it's such a need.
Yeah. Well, the pieces are there. Have fun, get connected, get into some self-discovery and figure out your future and get direction. And so we just wish you the best of success. Let us know how we can support you, as you go forward. I look forward to staying in touch. Who knows, maybe I get a chance to fly out there and do a little pizza night with your kids.
Oh,
But
you're
but best of success, many blessings in this holiday season for you to, take this forward. And in 2025, we're looking forward to the announcement of the opening of the first clubhouse of, How You Doing, the How You Doing Clubhouse it'll be probably North Lake, Texas, which is for those who don't know, is near Dallas. And then pretty soon Dallas will be inundated with, they'll be surrounded with these clubhouses and then beyond. So we'll look for the kind of a nice long journey here, because it's not gonna happen overnight. It's gonna happen one step at a time, but we'll be
yes,
tracking it and following it. And, Eddie, thanks so much for joining us on Pizza Quest today. And, we'll keep you in our thoughts and prayers for a very successful 2025.
Peter. Thank you so much for the time and the opportunity. I'm so grateful to spend time with you. And thanks again to John, for the introduction to you.
Yeah, thank you, John, at Mariforni, for putting us together and, alerting me to what's going on. And I think since you're going to all the right places to make the connections in the pizza world, you're gonna have the whole pizza community, aware of what you're doing. By the time the next the Pizza Expo happens in March, you'll have a whole much larger expanded community of contacts.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Peter. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eddie.